building community through amplifying the voices and vision of innovative educational leaders, practitioners, and learners from around South Africa.
Ifikile imini enkulu. Welcome to JGF Amplified, amplifying voices of thinkers and doers in the South African education system. I am Matawitladi. We are back for season 2, and we have something a little different today. I am not in a podcast studio, but we are on site. We are at Kuro Schools, and today we have special guests with us. You know what? I'm not going to introduce them. They're going to introduce themselves. They are here. They are live. And today we'll be talking about leadership within school governance. Our first theme for season 2 is leading today for tomorrow. And we will be unpacking the influence and impact of young leaders leading from the front. And today we have 2 such individuals, Songezo Malangeni and Tamlin Gavenda. Please introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, and what do you do? Songezo.
I'm Songezo Malangeni. I'm the head of high school at this Kuro school. I'm also the chair of transformation and diversity. I am from Ngeleni in the Eastern Cape. I'm a history teacher, and that's my story.
Lovely stuff. Tamlin.
So I'm Tamlin. I'm the phase head in the high school, but I'm also the head of the learner support in the high school at the Kuro school. And I'm from a small town called Middelburg in Mpumalanga in this big city. So yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for hosting our podcast on campus. Quite exciting seeing pictures and drawings and reminding us of the work that we do as the Jace Carval Fellowship, which is to empower high impact teachers for South African classrooms. Now, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, it is 9:16. It is the 2nd of September, yes? 2nd day of spring. What would you guys be doing at this time if we weren't here? Songes?
I'd probably be going through emails, and then my phone would go off, and I'd have to go investigate something in one of the classrooms, or just walk around, see if everyone's happy.
Okay, Tamlin.
Yeah, I think I'd either be teaching a class or sitting in my office, replying to emails, and then having lots of kids knock at my door at every minute.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
And speaking about teaching, what subjects do you teach, Tamlin?
I teach the junior English, and I teach life orientation to the seniors.
Okay, and Songes?
I teach grade 11 and 12 history.
Okay, good. So we are curious about the impact of leadership within the classroom, within South African schools. And I want to know, from your perspective, what does leadership mean to you? I'll start with you, Tamlin.
I think leadership means that whoever I'm working with, whoever is leading me, needs to also be considerate of things like, new ideas, the progressiveness of a society. It needs to take into consideration, the people that they are leading, as well as also being respectful. I think respect is a huge thing. Micromanagement is a no-no. But within a school context, I think when leading children, especially in a classroom, it's important to almost make yourself relatable to them. They never want to feel as though, you're there just to tell them what to do. It's almost, you have to give them the opportunity to let them know that you are just guiding them, and make them feel comfortable and respect them.
Yeah. So you speak a lot about a collaborative style of leadership. And piggybacking off what Tamlin is saying, Songezo, what does it mean for leaders within the school context to manage various stakeholders? Tamlin was talking about, leading children, right? You guys don't just lead children, you lead a staff room, and you need to manage parents. What does it mean to manage the interests of all these stakeholders?
I think let me just start by also just piggybacking on what Tamlin said about what leadership means. I think for me, it's always been a matter of so I love functioning systems, and I mean there's this idea of leaders being you have to be the scary person that'll have a top down approach, and I just don't subscribe to that. I think if we are all sort of contributing towards one vision and having one person at the helm that is ensuring that this thing is happening, that is what leadership is. And in schools we are always leading, whether you are leading the school as a principal, whether you're a teacher and not on management, you are leading that space. Whether you're a prefect, you are still leading that space. And I think good leadership can either make or break a school, because there are those various stakeholders. You have governing bodies, you have what we used to call PTAs. And if you are not effective as a leader, then, the power dynamics might be a little bit blurred, where the PTA might have this agenda, the governing body might, so I think if there's one leader that is effective, then they can pull those stakeholders together and work for the common good, I guess.
Yeah, and you both are.
Sorry, I went. I didn't like that.
That's okay. You can redo it if you want. It's all good.
The whole thing.
All right, we can cut that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can we move on? Yes.
Awesome. So you speak about leadership being managing the interests of stakeholders and making sure that we find that sweet spot where all these interests intersect. How has it been managing these interests, being young yourselves, right? Some members of the PTA may be considerably, I'll say, experienced within school governance and, dealing with the RCLs, however it is you choose to frame it, students, and. How do you negotiate your presence as young people in this space? I'll start with you, Tamlin.
I think for me, it's always ideal knowing exactly what's going on in your school. If it is a parent, for example, knowing your child very well, even though, we don't teach as much as a fully loaded teacher, for example, but I think we both take the time to just get to know the students for who they are, almost also discuss with each other, a bit of background when it comes to the students. So when dealing with the client who is, or the parents, we have an idea of where the child is coming from, because sometimes they can be different at home than they are at school, and there's all these different circumstances that surround the kids. And I think just having that knowledge is what will make you more respected in the community, and also taken more seriously. So I think knowledge.
So
I think the youth itself, you being young, speaks volumes. Being like a young person or the youngest person in the room says a lot about you as a person. I think as the title of this podcast suggests, we need to lead for tomorrow, and schools are full of, without sounding ageist, are really full of older people who might not really understand the type of child that we are trying to raise. And so there's this imbalance of people, that went to schools that had different systems, that had different rules under different, governments and so on. And I think it's really important to have young leaders, not just in schools. I mean, it's a global thing. Makes me think of that proverb of planting trees, planting trees under whose shade will never sit, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a lot of time to do that,
Yes.
but also the gap between the learners now and us is not as wide as the older school leadership. So I think schools should really start exploring and what do you call it? Experimenting with youth leadership, because I think it's helpful.
Yeah. And we have seen the impact, for instance, at a national scale, when we look at teachers such as Abongamze,
Yes.
who's from the Eastern Cape, Mwala Senior Secondary School, Kutsolo, where he transformed an entire school within a 3-year period, taking a school that had, I think, 0% at some point, maths and science rates. By the end of the 3-year period, the school was at 88%, right? Yeah. So that kind of subject knowledge and innovative teaching methodologies that young people bring into the space. Yes,
yeah, that was actually very inspirational, because the truth is there'll always be someone older. There'll always be someone more educated than you. And if, as a young leader, if you go into a space where there are older people or people who are more qualified than you, that is not your job there. You're not there to compare. But if you can lead effectively, then those people can, see your vision. And I think that's what that principal did. He had a goal and he achieved it, and he's continuing to do so. So I think, we are seeing live examples as you've mentioned.
Yeah. And for anyone who's listening and who wants to engage with the information that Abonga shared with us, you can go to our YouTube page at Jake's Cover Fellowship. We had him at Summit and he spoke at length about what it is that leads him in being a leader, and what influences him and what he believes is the impact of young leaders within the education system. I do want to, though, ask about the age gap between yourselves and your learners. What are the challenges there, and what are the benefits of being at a closer proximity to them age-wise, Tamlin?
To be honest, I think when I was a student teacher, I experienced that firsthand, where they'll look at you and they'll think, oh, but you look like you just matriculated last year or whatever. But I think with being relatable, with building those relationships, taking those times to just speak to the kids individually, it helps. And kids talk, right? So if you have a good relationship with a few of them, they always speak about, a specific teacher or a specific leader in the school that they can always go to. So I think it's about really gaining their respect and gaining their trust more than anything else.
Yeah.
And the challenges, songs?
Well, I agree with Tamlin. It's always been a mutual respect thing.
Yeah.
If I can just refer to my first teaching job, I think I was just like a little over 20, and I was at a boys' school, and there were people, some of the boys were 19, and masculinity things they want to, but I mean, they never did, because I respected them, and I said to them, well, I'm young, use me. I've just come out of a phase in my life that you are going to be going into. So let me help you get there, safely. And I mean, then you fast forward, I'm now an old man, or older person. But yeah, I still think that when they look at us, they can relate. And also the thing about role models, if you look at someone who looks like they're 50 years older than you, you might think that, oh, when will I ever get there? But if you see a young leader, you can see something that is quite attainable.
Yeah, so I also find that very true, in that they'll almost come to you with the questions that they're too afraid to ask the older staff, for example, or they'll come to you and say, I don't know how to approach this with my parents. And that, to me, I think is such a huge compliment to us, is knowing that because we're making ourselves relatable, because there's a relationship with respect and trust, that they can almost use us, as Songezo said, as an avenue, as an opportunity. And I think that's so empowering for us as young leaders as well.
And relationships are really important, boundaried relationships. There's this whole that line that teachers used to use, that we are not, teachers aren't your friends,
Yes,
and I mean, of course we're not, but there has to be a relationship. I mean, if you went to the bank every day, for example, and you spoke to the same person every day, you are going to form some sort of relationship.
Yes.
And it can't just be like, like cut. So I really think there's value. If you form relationships with kids, they will respect you.
Yeah, I think what I'm really getting from the both of you is using your age as an asset, and seeing it as an opportunity to, I suppose, excavate things from your learners, and also giving your learners the platform or the space for them to share what it is that they need to speak about, and they have a person to go to engage with. I am quite curious in your leadership journeys. Did you guys have teacher mentors who specifically molded you for leadership?
I think I was molded for leadership, but a very unique kind from like school, where again I'll refer to the whole, I'm not the guy leading from the front and you need to see my muscles. I'm just there. Prefer to be in the background, but the impact is felt. So did the whole prefect thing, went to university, did the whole subordinating thing, which was, I know it's not about teaching, but even then, it was these older people, diverse groups, but they managed to have faith in my ability as a leader.
Yeah.
And then in terms of schooling, the first job I had, I was, like I said, the youngest person in the room. So my journey there started in a very unofficial way, because leaders see you, right? And so what would happen is I'd work quite late. The principal used to work quite late. And so he'd sometimes come into the staff room and, off the record, he'd be like, I'm stressing about this. And I would, share my bit. And, I suppose he appreciated that. And then I moved up to school governance. I joined the governing body of that school, where we were looking at policies. It was actually quite time consuming because it was like a Saturday. Those meetings were usually on a Saturday. And as a young person on a Saturday, you don't want to be sitting talking about policies. But I mean, it was a sacrifice that I had to make. And I think as well, because I said leaders see you, they would, they saw that, there's potential here. And at that point, I'd never really applied officially to be part of a management team or whatever, because of, I'm the last one in kind of, and there's a Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so who's been there for 25 years. And, you just want to give them their shine. But I was quite effective in decision-making, and then moved, obviously, to other schools where I was on separate, different committees. And then I led a department as well, where I got there was a senior teacher who was quite, a good teacher, but in terms of structuring the department, I felt it needed like strong leadership. It was a Xhosa department, and you know how they take the second languages and they make them seem, or African languages seem. So I gave it weight, and then I decided it was time to step up and be a leader officially, and that is when I applied to be a head of a high school. So that is my journey.
So the inspiration behind the title of Leading Today for Tomorrow, just to give it context as well, it was inspired by our summit, our annual summit, and the idea that our candidate fellows are in various leadership positions now, right? They are on their journeys towards being teachers, but they are in house comms, they're in societies, and to encourage that where you are leading today is going to help you tomorrow. So when you are highlighting your journey in high school and university, it may seem as though it's not within the context of education, but that muscle that you got in those contexts is affecting your presence.
It definitely started there. Yeah, you're right. Started there. I mean, you don't become a leader and then just leave it,
Yeah.
Especially if you hear that and you're always told that, listen, you're a good leader. And obviously the university I went to, leadership was actually quite a, I think there was this, what was the slogan? Where
leaders learn.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that just stuck to me, and I was like, I'm not just learning the subjects or the courses, I'm also learning how to lead. And I think that prepared me quite well.
Tamlin, your journey.
So I think mine would be a little bit different to Songezo's in the fact that I think as a person of color and as a female, I don't know if, that was always in the cards for me. Growing up, I think my answer would be more of a little story, but I think growing up, I think I can commend my dad for example, for just, giving me a little bit of responsibility at home. Not saying things like, you should stay in the house with your mom while we go out to the dam or whatever it was, just those gender roles, I think, helped me a lot to gain my confidence when speaking to the opposite gender. But I think when I was at school, I had very low confidence. I was actually bullied at school. I never applied to be a prefect, none of that. It was actually something that I never wanted or thought that I would be able to do. And then when I went to my first school where I was a student teacher, it was actually my principal there who told me, one day I see you becoming a principal of a school. And I was like 23 at the time, and I was like, oh, she's crazy. What is she saying? So I didn't believe it at all. And it was only until I came to Johannesburg when I moved to a Kuro school that I realized, that there's a reason why people are giving me a lot of responsibility. There's a reason why people are getting me involved in certain discussions around policies and things like that. So my intention was never to become a leader, but where I gained most of my confidence is in the trust of the kids, really. I've always felt so empowered by them, by their stories as well. And I think for me, that is where my passion comes from for leadership, is wanting to be there for them, wanting to show them that, it doesn't matter if you are a female. It doesn't matter if you are a young person. It doesn't matter if you are a person of color. You can become a leader and you will serve a purpose and you can help other people. So I think for me, that's what it's been about. And I think it took one person actually at the school last year to empower me so much, to make me believe that I can actually, lead a group of adults, not just children. And then having Songezo come along a year ago as well helped me so much in that, we have a very good dynamic, and that is very encouraging. And there are moments where I feel as though, I'm that timid girl in high school who was bullied. But then I look at my peers and I'm open and I'm honest with them, and then they are always there to reassure. So I think having those open relationships, being vulnerable also, there's power in that, which makes you more relatable in leadership.
That is so interesting, and I think it's a great segue into my next question, which is about the dynamic that you two have at the school. How do you negotiate quote unquote power? Let's say the thing for what it is. Who leads when in the front? Who leads when at the back? How do we establish those kind of finer dynamics and politics that make themselves known within governance?
I think we're actually quite fortunate that we, from the word go, just got along. So I have one boss, and so I'm between my boss and Tamlin, and instead of looking at as two sides, those are like my cushions, basically. So I'm like my anchors. So I'm in between them. They my I won't fall, and so there are things that I have to do or delegate, and also my journey as being head of high school hasn't just been my journey. I won't close my office when I have to do something. I'll say to Tamlin, let's do this together. It is so I don't know, it's like a very, what is the word?
Linear.
Yeah, it's a very linear thing. Whereas I don't see myself as above Tamlin. The title might be, but we do a lot together because I think I always say in 10 years or 5 or whenever, if Tamlin wants to be a head of high school anywhere, I don't think she must then start learning what it is to be head of high school. She could literally walk into any school now and be head of high school. So, yeah.
That is quite interesting, because the idea of how young people are mentoring each other, because the face of leadership within school governance is slowly but surely changing, considering the wave of retirement within the education space, the teacher dividend as well. Now we are seeing younger principals or younger heads of school, and so the way that she's speaking now, you're almost saying that walking with someone side by side is a form of role modeling and is indirectly a form of mentorship, really.
And it's we mentoring each other because there are things I don't know that Tamlin will assist with, but in the traditional sense of leadership, you don't even want to admit that because you look weak. So I think there's, like Tamlin said, there's power in being vulnerable and saying, well, I don't know, please help, and then we lean on each other like that. And then in that way, we can be more effective as leaders and make sure that the school is a great place.
And Tamlin always feels like a strategy that you both use, Songezo, is leveraging on the skill sets that are around you and making them work for the vision and the intention of the school's progress and growth. And with all of this being said, you are still an English teacher. There are still outcomes that you still need to meet. And managing a school and still having to be an effective teacher within the classroom, how are you negotiating that demand?
So it's very stressful. I mean, and just to speak on what you and Songezo were talking about just now, our dynamic is that from the get-go, like from the time we wake up, we send each other a message talking about, what we need to do for the day, and also being vulnerable and letting each other know, there's this test that, the kids are writing that I still have to set, and, being absolutely honest with one another. But in saying that, it's also that dynamic that helps me navigate so much of what we have to do, is because I know I'm not alone. I'm not this only lonely fish in the ocean, There's someone who's with me, somebody who I can just say, I can't manage this today. Can you just take this on? I think knowing that you have that kind of support is just amazing. And when you step into the classroom, I think, we're both teachers at heart. So as soon as you step into that classroom, no email is above the children in front of you. No investigation is above those kids. We have to dedicate our time to them. There's a reason they are at the school, and it's for an education. So, and I don't know if Songezo would agree with me, but when you leave a class, you almost feel more energized because you're feeding off their energy. And whereas if you sit in your office the whole day and you're just doing emails and dealing with, trouble, it's so draining. So having those breaks in between and knowing that, I'm still a teacher, I've still got this, and, and kids are just amazing. Sometimes they'll just know that something's going on, so they'll say something to you like, ma'am, I just came to check on you to see if you're okay. It's those kinds of things that just push you and make you do like so much better at your job.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I'd absolutely hate my job if I was just doing admin and officey things. So as soon as I love history, I love the kids. So as soon as I walk into a classroom, then, I feel like a different person. Sometimes I wish I could stay longer. I always say to my friends, I miss being in the classroom more. But my calling is a little bit different now. And sometimes you wear different hats. I don't know if can I share a little story from yesterday. So I went into my history class, and it was like towards the end of the day, grade 11s, like 7 boys in that class. I looked at them and then I read like a paragraph from this book. And then I thought, no, man, we can't be doing this. Come, let's go for a walk. And then we went to this place. We were just going to stand outside and look at it. And we saw the gate was open. It's not open to the public, really. And they said, the gate's open. Can't we, And for that moment, I said, you know what, guys, I tried to do the right thing first. And then I thought, you know what, this will be a memory for these kids. And so we went in and we walked out the other side. And it was just like such a thrill where they can also see that, we are human. We are their teachers. So it really, you need to just balance it and do your admin, but also live for the classroom.
Yeah, I love that. Do your admin, but live for the classroom. I am quite curious in understanding, because now let's talk about the staff room. Let's talk about the staff room and that space, right? Do you lead with the intention, or let me actually repeat the whole question. Let's look at the staff room as a dynamic, right? Do you feel the pressure to walk into that classroom wanting to transform the space? Because I can imagine you're dealing with a lot of teachers who may have their own grievances and gripes with policy things, or with how they teach, or, you know, all these things. Do you feel the pressure to walk in and transform that space? Or yeah, what is your dynamic with the staff room rather?
So I would say there's no pressure, but I think every organization, or let me just say school, needs to have a culture. So I wouldn't feel pressured to walk into a staff room and try to make people, you know, think the same way and all of that. But there has to be a vision, and you just need to understand that it's okay for people to not align really with that vision. But ideologically maybe, but I mean, you're here, so you have to, you know, pull together as a team. So the dynamic, I think, you know, when you are not a leader and you just, you know, you're teaching, and you look at the principal, whoever walk in, there's almost like this godly sort of thing that is, and I try to avoid that, where if I'm in the staff room, please, like we here, we're together. And obviously when we have to do our work, then I become the team leader. But outside of that, it's very laid back. It's very chilled. We have quite a youngish staff. So I rarely, from the first day when people say Mr. Malangeni, I'm like, no, please just use my name. And that's it, you know.
Okay. Taryn, do you feel the pressure to meet everyone's needs equally where the stakeholders are concerned?
I think that's one of my biggest stresses.
Is it possible to meet everyone's needs?
I think realistically not, but I think as an individual, I put a lot of pressure on myself to do that. Yeah,
I wanted to jump in there and say the problem is that you cannot. You can try your best and be this like phenomenal person and really try and make everyone happy, but there will always be someone that will not be satisfied, and we have to be okay with that. So I think, again, the balance in our relationship is that I will say, you know what, let's just let that one go, you know.
Thank you so much for having us. Absolutely love this conversation. But before we close,
can I just go back to the staff room thing?
Sure,
I just wanted to
please.
say also, like, I think trust is like a normal human process. And when you're new or when you're leading a staff, there'll be a time where they don't trust you and you're still new and all of that. And you need to be okay with that and say, well, over time, it will get better. And whenever there's like a change in management, this young person has come in, this young black guy has come in, you know, you already have this pressure to work twice as hard because you can't fail, you know, and I'm very patient. But it's really, I feel sorry for people who want to see change like almost immediately, you know. You need to understand that it takes time, and as a leader, you need to be kind to yourself to say that it will take time for you know your leadership to be felt or to be effective.
Yeah.
Can I just comment on what he said
Sure.
about, you know, the staff? Is that I think for both of us, the main concern is whether or not the interests of the children are put first. That's always how you know, if it's not, it's a complete red flag. But I think since Songezo's come into this position, even the way that we've been employing new teachers, we've included the children in making those decisions. And I think that's where our level of transformation has come in, and it's so empowering to our students.
Please expound on that. How do you integrate the voice of the learners in the recruitment process?
They must interview the people as well. You'll be working with them, so you might as well account.
Yeah.
Sorry, that sounds so bad, but you might, we do the serious, boring stuff, and then we say, well, then maybe Tamlin, it's your point, so maybe you can expand on it.
Yeah,
Maybe not hijack.
so we do like you said, the boring stuff, the checking, the background checks and whatever, and then looking again at which candidate will have their best interests at heart, and then they get to basically almost make the final choice when it comes to if there's a few candidates that are left. Where they get to interact with the kids, and then we ask the kids for feedback, and we've done it with almost every new appointment that we've had since Songezo has started in the position. And again, when the kids come to us and they complain about the teacher, I'm like, remember, you were involved in that process, hey? And I think just teaching that life lesson at this age is something that I wish, I was involved in when I was younger, or just, having that platform and that opportunity. So empowering. Yeah.
Because the truth is, you can be a good teacher and then get to a school and just be this effective teacher that's horrible to young people. So again, if a person maybe has to do like a mock lesson, I mean, most of the time those kids won't really even be listening to the sum that you're trying to, but they're trying to see, can you relate as a person? And I think that's very important, because schools can really make or break people. And if we are just going to employ someone because they have 30 years experience, but is going to use that experience to then hurt people, then we can't have you here, So I think also as a leader, you need, like Tamlin said, the kids come first. Our duty of care is making sure that they leave the space empowered and not say, oh, I never want to see that building again, or I never want to hear the name of that school again. They must come back.
Two last questions, actually, because as you were speaking, it's something, what you were saying piqued my interest. How do you deal with the intergenerational gap that exists in the staff room, right? Because we've been speaking at length about the value of young people and almost, I will admit, almost to the detriment of isolating the older and wiser and more experienced, if you will. How do you bridge that gap?
I think professionalism, the first thing, like you have to be professional. You have to be respectful. And then the truth is we can learn from one another. I think there are older people on the staff who are way different to what they were maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, because of the approach that we've used to say, actually, there's no need. If you've been shouting for 20 years, give it a break, because you actually don't have to shout at children. You know what I mean? So we can, and also there's strategies they can teach us as well. And I mean, to keep it on a lighter note, to get to know a person personally, and they're not just Mrs. X, just talk to them. What are your interests? And maybe you find that there's actually, some common things, but I think the main thing is just to be professional and respect each other. And it just almost happens automatically, not all the time, but yeah.
I think he's answered the question. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that, but I'm not going to say anything.
So I want to know the impact of role modeling in your lives within the schooling system. You can take what you call this, a throwback, a flashback of a teacher or a fellow colleague who has really impacted how you view yourself as a person, as a teacher, as a leader. So Tamlin, do share a story or do share a memory of a person within this education system that has impacted you a lot.
I think there have been many, and there will continue to be a lot more. But like from my high school, I think it would be my hospitality studies teacher who, I think she saw that I was troubled, and she just took the time to find out, what's going on. And she took me under her wing. And when I started as a student teacher, I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to specialize in. And she just told me, just sit with me. I just need you with me. And, those words, somebody coming in, not knowing what they want to do in education, really in terms of subjects, that for me was so comforting, just knowing that I belong to something almost. And I think I've used that as a lesson. And it's something that I use every single day. Is when I look at children, I always think to myself, there's so much more to you. You know, I don't want a teacher to label you as naughty, because there is a lot more to you. And just taking the time to speak to them and build those relationships again. And I think the second person was very influential is our current exec. I've not met someone as empowering as he is. Just the things that he says, the things that he does, how he interacts with people. And for me, he's been such a huge mentor. And so this is like becoming the splitting image of him. But yeah, I see them in such, in such high regard. And I will always strive to, one day make those people proud.
Amazing.
Yeah, this question for me, like, it hits home because, schools are very special places, and coming from like a troubled, I suppose, personal life, my safe space has always been at school. And I think the first time I wanted to become a teacher was in grade 6. I had there was a student teacher, maths. I mean, I hated maths, but on the last day of her prac, she made popcorn for us, gave us, and that's just, it's always been such a memory. But my grade 6 teacher was very, instrumental in my life. Then I went to high school. My history teacher, who literally became my mother into adulthood, she was, everything to me. I have a lot of families. I don't just have my family. I have a lot of families where, I'd stay with people over holidays. And those are all people I met through school. And lastly, my current boss, I think Tamlin said it all, in the next 5 years, I feel like I could easily to be an executive just because of the mentorship and the I almost said patience. He's not patient. So again, we have that where I'm the patient one, but he's, and we rarely gel, but he is, he loves children, loves education, has a brilliant educational vision. So I'd say 90% of my life revolves around schooling, whether it's friends or what I do in my spare time. It's like and that's why I'm committed to serving school communities. And that's why there must be safe spaces, because there might be someone in the school who does not have a rosy life outside of school. So let us make school the place that they want to be in, that will take them far.
Well said. At JGF, we say be a teacher. Tamlin, why should people consider teaching?
Oh, it is the most fulfilling job, really. With the multitude of, children that you meet, their parents as well. It's just so fulfilling. At the end of the day, when you put your head down on that pillow, you can at least say, I've tried to make a difference in someone. It sounds so cliche, but I've tried to make a difference in someone's life. Or just when a child comes up to you and just wants a hug. I've done my job. I can go home now. That's how I feel, because that's what I want,
Yeah.
I really just want to make them feel like Songezo said, like they are safe. Yeah.
Why be a teacher, son?
School holidays. School holidays. I mean, it's the best thing that's ever happened in my life. To just have a break.
Yeah.
I get to travel. I get to just sit around and not do anything. That's like on the surface. I really love the holidays. But maybe on a more serious note, schools are communities. They're a reflection of what is happening, out there. So the dynamics that happen in a school are happening in our societies, they're happening globally, kind of. So, and then you almost have the power is not the right word, the influence to say, well, if you come into the space with certain ways of thinking and certain attitudes or beliefs, we can actually show you that, it's not like that, or it is like that. So you can literally make you can literally change it, or influence it for the better of our community and our world and all of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tamlin. Thank you, Songezo. And if you have any further questions, queries, and you want to engage this topic further, please feel free to contact us, the Jakes Carval Fellowship, on our social media. It is at Jakes Carval Fellowship on YouTube. It is JGF Fellowship on Twitter. It is Jakes Carval Fellowship on Facebook, and it's at _Jakes Carval Fellowship on Instagram. It has been lovely to spend another hour with you speaking about all things education. See you next time.